Do you want to learn 2D animation? Well then listen up, because in this video I'm gonna tell you the #1 most important rule of animation that will be the base for any animation that you do in the future. I'm Ferdinand for Animator Island, bringing you tips, tricks and tutorials to become a better animator. So here's the thing, if you're animating something, you're not just somehow moving stuff from point A to point B. No. Your job, and this is the #1 most important rule, your job is to control how emotion looks and feels. And there are a lot of possible ways of how you, as the animator, can make things look and feel. You have to decide if you want it to be smooth, snappy, mechanical, or naturalistic, to just name a few options that you have on the surface level. And you can even go deeper. The way how you animate the motion can also convey an emotion. A sad character moves different from a happy character. So what is that magical tool that allows you to put this information in, that gives you the control over your motion? Well, one of the most important tools, and we will have a closer look at this today, is spacing. Here's about the most simple animation that you can do. It's just two drawings, like 10-12 frames apart, and it looks super choppy, but even at this low frame rate, our brain is already seeing emotion. It's already thinking that this ghost and this ghost are the same ghost in different positions, although the lines are completely different. Isn't that crazy? The distance between the lines in an animation drawing between two frames is called spacing. So these two drawings, they have a fairly large spacing from here to there. So let's have a look at a second example down here. This ghost is also moving at the exact same moment as the other one, but in comparison, the ghost down here is traveling a much smaller distance in the same amount of time. So the bigger spacing makes the ghost travel faster, and the ghost with the smaller spacing is slower. Now, what a lot of beginners do wrong is they ignore this. When they start animating, they will draw the first frame over here, and then for the second one, because they want to move this object, right? They put a fairly large spacing from here to there. And then they would draw the next drawing in a similar spacing and the next one. And accidentally, they would end up with an animation where all the images have the same spacing. And that's not good because it contains no intentional information about our motion. If you just add a bunch of frames in that style for our ghost and play the animation once, it just looks boring. There's no flavor in this animation. And if we play it in a loop, something even more weird happens. It looks like the ghost is hitting an invisible wall to the left and to the right. Both the boringness and the weird bounciness happens because all our spacings are the same. This is called a linear motion. That means our object is moving always with the same speed. But this is something that in reality usually doesn't occur that way. And this is causing a very big problem at the very end where it changes direction, because it comes in with the same speed and then gets deflected into the other direction. It immediately has the same speed too. This is something that can happen in reality if a ball bounces off a wall or the floor and the ball is very light, then it can happen that the spacing is almost the exact same. But for our ghost, we don't want him to hit a wall on each side of his motion. So what can we do? Usually, if your character lifts an arm or, you see a motion starting or ending, it starts out slower and gets faster. It accelerates. And you can use spacing to give that information in your motion. So in this example, our ghost is starting very slowly, speeding up, going fast in the middle, and then slowing down again. And immediately it looks a lot more natural, as if our ghost is hanging on a string, dangling left and right. And all this magic happens only because we increase and decrease our spacings. From the first to the second frame, the spacing is very small, and then it gets larger and larger and larger. And at the other end of our motion, you can see how it's doing the opposite, giving us the impression of our ghost slowing down. Of course, we animators, we have our own terms for that. An acceleration, where the spacing starts small and gets larger and larger and larger, is called an ease out, because you are easing out of this first key position. The other case, where your spacing starts quite large and gets smaller and smaller and smaller, is a deceleration that is called an ease in, because you are easing into that next key position, that next keyframe of your motion. And this pattern of speeding up and slowing down is something that you will need in your animation over and over again, because this is hard-coded into physics, into how objects move in our world. By changing how you distribute the frames within an ease out or an ease in, you can change how the motion feels. Here you have one that looks very mechanical and robotic, because after just one frame of ease, we go to very monotonous and same spacing, as if a machine, a motor, reached its maximum speed and is just holding the maximum speed. Here you have a motion that is a little more naturalistic, a little more smooth, and this is because our easing is relatively long. We have a very long phase where our spacings get bigger and bigger, and then vice versa for the ease in. And last but not least, we have a very snappy looking animation where we only have a very close spacing and a very large spacing. So it starts out slow, there's still ease in here, but the next spacing is already huge, making it very, very snappy. The thing that you shouldn't break about your ease is the rule that for an ease out, every spacing has to be larger than the previous one, and for an ease in, every spacing has to be smaller than the previous one. As you can see in the bottom, we changed the size of the spacing, but the pattern of increasing spacings is still the same. So pay attention that you don't break this unless you have a very good reason for why you're doing this. Or, of course, it could be that the motion is interrupted, for example, by a wall. If you're really just starting out to learn animation, I invite you to practice this on paper. You can just take any ordinary post-it notes, and I would recommend you to start at the bottom, because then you can always put the next picture on top of it and see the previous picture shining through. Then animate something where the spacings grow larger and larger and then smaller and smaller again. I'm going to show you mine real quick. And don't worry, we are going to do things that are a lot more complex than this flipbook soon. You'll be able to animate your own characters and the things that you wanted, the stories that you wanted to tell, and the short films that you wanted to create. I will help you with all of this, but we need to get some basics out of the way first. And starting with paper is really good because it's such a direct connection between you and the pencil and the paper. It's just so direct. In the next video, I'm going to show you a set of key drawings. If you put them into your animation will look pretty good, even if you're just starting out with animation, even if you're just a beginner, with this blueprint, you're going to be able to do amazing animation. If you don't want to miss any of these lessons, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or register for the course on animatorisland.com. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you again. Keep on animating.